Mayor Buck.
Good morning.
So, Jamie, we're at the hour, so to speak here. Any absences you're aware of, or is all our presenters present?
It is looking like all of our presenters are present. We are batting 1,000.
Okay, great.
All right. So this is the March 19th C4 Metro Subcommittee. Your chair is Paul Savas. Commissioner Savas, the meeting is yours.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Let me here open up my agenda here. Oops. Jeez, pardon me. It's early. Okay, His first order of business, I guess, looks like welcome, everyone. I'm Commissioner Paul Savas, co-chair of the C4 Metro Subcommittee. I think we all know each other. And so I would say that Jamie, looks like the next thing on the agenda would be I see you have a city's caucus for the selection of the C4 Metro Subcommittee co-chair.
That is correct. By way of background, the C4 Metro Subcommittee is led by both a commissioner and a city's co-chair. Earlier this year, we had a membership changeover, and Councillor Sherman is no longer a member of C4 in that capacity. So we have the opportunity to readjust our leadership, and today is an opportunity to invite our cities to caucus and select a new co-chair. The bylaws are pretty flexible in how a new co-chair is selected, but the requirements that are in place is that the co-chair must be a city member, must be a member of C4, and must be a voting member to JPACT or MPAC. Included on page 6 of the packet materials today is a list of the city representatives to JPACT and MPAC. And with that, I would open it up to the group well, maybe if it would be helpful, we can go through the names that are voting members if you don't have your packets open yet. Currently, our voting members are Mayor Joe Buck of Lake Oswego, who is a member to JPACT and MPAC, Councillor Brett Sherman, who is on JPACT and MPAC, but is no longer a C4 member, Councillor Rachel Verdick of Lake Oswego, who is a member of MPAC, Mayor McGriff of Oregon City, who is a member of MPAC, Commissioner Mitchell of Oregon City, who is a member of MPAC, and that concludes our MPAC JPAC members.
Okay. As well as the folks that are present here today, including Councillor Pratt, Mayor Buck, Mayor Milch, or do they have to be actually JPAC MPAC members? Just for clarification.
Both co-chairs serve as voting members on either JPAC or MPAC.
Okay. Whether they're primary or alternates.
I am inclined to take a more flexible approach because an alternate can vote if the primary is not in attendance.
Right. Okay. Well, folks, this is a city-led conversation, so I don't have a vote or an opinion to insert in this, so this is all yours. Councillor Pratt.
Well, Mayor Buck, do you have an interest?
I would love to nominate Commissioner Mitchell. It's very limited. I didn't know that these requirements. I mean, good Lord.
Well, I don't
I don't know that I'm fully up to speed. I'm the alternate on MPAC. So to Jamie's comment, I'm not sure that I'm exactly the right person for that.
For those of you joining us, the city members are discussing who their selection is for the co-chair of the city's rep on this committee. Councilor Pratt, your hand still up?
Yes. So I guess, Jamie, my question is like, I'm just gonna pick on Mayor Milch. So does it have to be somebody that currently serves on MPAC or JPAC?
The bylaws are a little vague, but they say
Okay.
that the co-chairs will serve as voting members on either of the bodies.
So I'm a little confused as what remaining options we have here.
So if not Mayor Buck, and if not Councillor Sherman, we have Rachel Verdict of Lake Oswego, Mayor McGriff of Oregon City, and Mike Mitchell.
I guess, yeah, the problem is not all those are members that come to this meeting. Well, I mean, if no one else wants to do it, I mean, I'm happy to do it. I see we don't have many options here.
I nominate Mayor Buck.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded for Mayor Buck. Are there any more nominations? Oh, actually, this is still your show, so I shouldn't really step in, but Mayor Buck, you wanna, being kind of more of one of our more senior city members, you want to just run this show because this is your show.
Okay.
As far as selection.
Yeah. Okay, so we have this all right, for you city representatives, all those in favor of I guess me serving as the co-chair, say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
All right. Okay. Is there anyone opposed to that? All right. Seeing none. I guess that does it. Thanks, Commissioner.
Well done, Mayor Buck.
Great.
Congratulations. Glad to have you on as a partner here in this group. So you can chime in anytime. And I'll go forward unless you want to go forward as co-chair today.
No, please go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So Jamie, let's bring on our next agenda item, which is a TriMet safety presentation. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm pleased to introduce John Sarah and Andrew Wilson of TriMet. John and Andrew, the meeting is yours.
Great. I think thanks for letting us be here with you today to give you an update. My name is Andrew Wilson. I'm the Chief Safety Officer and Executive Director of Safety Security at TriMet. We're kind of just going back out to meet with groups like you all just to make sure you have a good understanding of the investments we've made in safety and security. John, are you going to share the presentation this morning? All right. Or Jamie. Thank you, guys. So I wanted to kind of just give you an update and then just leave some time for some questions as well. Appreciate, again, you letting us be a part. If we could go to the next slide, please. So some of you may recall in 2020 and 2021, the Portland Police Bureau removed themselves from transit, and we established a new relationship with the Transit Police Division with the Multnomah County Sheriff's Department in the lead position. So we do have a contract with the Multnomah County Sheriff's Department to provide transit policing services. They work with other law enforcement departments that give officers to transit police as well, give them an opportunity to be a part of that program and get training, et cetera. But we have also established several other teams out on the system, mostly unarmed. Our transit security officers, you'll see them out there. This is an allied security contract. You'll see quite a few of those folks out there on the system, and I'll be talking about a little bit about those numbers later. We also have customer safety supervisors who are doing code and fare enforcement. We do code and fare enforcement regularly. We've actually really ramped that up over the last 3 months. You might have seen some media about that. And those are actual TriMet employees because law enforcement in our area will not do fare enforcement any longer. So we've established kind of our own internal resource to do fare and code enforcement. We have our customer safety officers who are security that actually accompany our safety supervisors when they do fare and code enforcement out on the system. And then we have our safety response team, which we're very proud of this team. This team is a behavioral health, mental health kind of outreach group. We have about 70 of these people out there on the system right now. They carry Narcan, they carry water bottles, socks, etc., and address some of the most vulnerable riders on the system, folks that are suffering from houselessness, drug addiction issues, and as well as mental health issues. So it's really necessary for us to have this resource out there right now to deal with some of the issues that the city of Portland and the metro area are dealing with. So this is kind of the group that's out there right now. If you're out riding the system, you're going to interact with one or all of these groups. We have almost 500 people working in the safety and security division made up of these teams. And so you're going to see a lot more presence out there if you ride right now. Next slide, please. One of the things I try to bring up in this setting is just to remind us that we're not a microcosm. Public transit across the entire nation has been kind of reeling since the COVID pandemic in particular, with people's ridership changes, societal impacts, etc. Transit across the entire nation has been really kind of struggling to come up with good solutions. At TriMet, we've actually been able to buck a lot of trends and actually get some significant reductions, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. But just kind of a snapshot of some of the things that folks are dealing with around the country. On the right side, you'll see Catherine Hochul's response back in 2024 to MTA and some of the issues that are happening in New York. That actually could be updated today. She's now is asking for 2 law enforcement personnel to ride every single train in the MTA during certain hours timeframes, which is a huge investment. But just as kind of a reminder to this group that there's a lot going on around the country in transit. We're really proud of the response that we have, but this is not something that's just localized to Portland or the metro area. If we go to the next slide, please. So these are some fast stats that we have been experiencing over the last 3 years. You can see we've seen some very significant reductions in dispatch calls for police service. So we're really proud of that. The busiest times for police service calls are in that 7 a.m. hour, as well as between 4 and 10 p.m. So that's where we have most of our law enforcement and our security sort of out on the system. We do have 3 transit police precincts, one downtown right there north of the convention center, one in Beaverton, and one out in Clackamas Town Center, which is relevant to you. You'll notice underneath the parking garage, we actually have a transit police department, and you'll see some transit police vehicles underneath the parking garage on the east side of the Clackamas Town Center for you folks out that direction. And if we go to the next slide, please. So in the prior slide, you saw kind of the reductions in calls for police service, and that's across the entire metro area. So that it does include Clackamas County as well. So those are, those reductions of 52%. This is this year broken out by quarter. But you can kind of see in Q1, we had that ice storm. There wasn't a lot of ridership happening. That's kind of the blip there on that lower amount. But I will say we've really invested over the last 3 years to have now more than 8,000 cameras out on the system. We also have a security operations center that is 24-hour staffed, has dispatchers up there that were trained actually at DPSST, the same training that 911 dispatchers get, who's dispatching our security services, the over 500 now that we have out there. So we try to respond in real time, and we're seeing the reductions. You can see the reductions in assaults there and robberies pretty dramatically over the last few years as well. As you are communicating with your friends and neighbors, I live out in Gresham, so I have lots of conversations. A lot of folks have not ridden in a long time. And I'll tell you, 21 and 22 particularly were pretty difficult for us, but we're seeing some significant reductions due to all these investments and a real focus on safety and security to win back our riders. So if we go back to go to the next slide, please. I'll kind of give you some more updates about what's happening. So priority level calls for service. This is just another way of looking at the prior slides, but you'll see that we're now dealing with more non-emergency and less emergency. A lot of the calls that we receive out on the system are not things that need a law enforcement response. They're things to do with, like I said, houselessness, mental health, drug addiction issues. So we have other teams that can respond to those, and our law enforcement partners actually thank us for that because they don't have the resources necessarily, the connectivity to community outreach services to deal with some of the issues that we run into. So while we always want our law enforcement personnel involved, sometimes the best response is some of these unarmed teams that we've developed. And we work in conjunction with transit police for that as well. And so I just bring that up because a lot of these folks that we have out on our system are doing really good work that may have not even been done in the past, even when we had full law enforcement numbers. If we go to the next slide, please. So this is the staffing by the numbers. You can see in our transit police division, we've moved up a total of 4 law enforcement professionals. So we're still trying to build back to a pre-pandemic 65 of transit police out on the system. And so we're working with other jurisdictions to get folks back into the system. We had as many as 14 law enforcement agencies in the past that were a part of the transit police division. Right now we're at 4. We're working with several in the area, including Lake Oswego, Mayor Buck, to get some folks back into transit police. We're excited about those folks returning. We're also working with Portland Police Bureau right now to return some officers as well. So we'll be building back up. The Port of Portland is committing some officers as well. So we're talking with lots of folks. But you can see our transit security numbers have really increased, our customer safety supervisors, officers, and safety response team. We've also been building back up our customer service on-street teams as well to deal with some of the just wayfinding. But all of these groups provide presence, which helps us with the perception of safety. We hear that loud and clear in our ridership surveys that people want to see people that are working for TriMet out on the system. It builds that perception of safety. This is pretty normal. And of course, the other thing that builds perception of safety is heavy ridership and getting full trains and buses again. And so some of these things are working together, and we've been steadily building our riders back up. If we could go to the next slide, please. One of the partnerships that we have, key partnerships, is our district attorney's partnership. We have a partnership with the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office. We have 2 district attorneys that work for us on contract right alongside every day with our public safety office and our transit police. They have 2 DA prosecutors, or sorry, 2 DA investigators that work underneath them as well. These are ex-law enforcement folks that help them complete their investigations and hold people accountable for actions. Now, this is specific to Multnomah County, obviously. Our DAs do talk with Clackamas County and Washington County. We have had very good relationships with and prosecutorial appetite in Clackamas County and Washington County to hold offenders accountable in the past, and so we'll continue that. But just letting you know that the district attorney's office for Multnomah County is very embedded in our system as well. So we could go to the next slide, please. One of the things you may have been aware of, we did pursue some what we called safe transit legislation last year, where we actually went down. I went down to Salem 4 or 5 separate times, testifying about some of the things that we were seeing on transit. We were able to get a bill passed, Senate Bill 1553. You might have seen some media about that, making it a misdemeanor A for open drug use on the system. As we've been dealing with open drug use in the metro area since Measure 110, it was really important for us to really carve out transit as a safe space free of that. We initially pursued having, a misdemeanor A penalty assigned to folks that were using drugs on the vehicles as well as the stations and platforms. That was cut down because HB 4002 went into effect in September, which made it a misdemeanor B for any open drug use. You might recall kind of repealing some of the acts of Measure 110. As of January 1, we do have this new law out there, which is a tool that's been used already by transit police as well as local area law enforcement. One thing to remember is when you call 911 and you're on a bus or a train, the closest jurisdiction is going to respond. So just because we have 18 or 22 now transit police doesn't mean you're still not going to get a law enforcement response if you call 911. But having transit police allows us to be a little bit more specific in some of the mission work we do out there and be able to direct resource. But just as an FYI, 911 responds, all of our local jurisdictions are involved, which is another reason why it's nice to have jurisdictions that we operate through in transit so that we can communicate and coordinate with those local jurisdictions, which are responding daily to our calls. If we go to the next slide, please. Again, so progress through technology and strategy, we've been really technologically advancing a lot of the pieces that we have out there. I mentioned the over 8,000 cameras. I'll tell you, our camera systems, we have about 40% of those that are generating calls internally for investigations. About 60% are from external partners, i.e. Portland Police Bureau, Clackamas County Sheriff's Department, et cetera, that ask us for our surveillance information and different pieces of information they can help to build their cases, particularly surveillance, because we have such good camera systems across the system now on our buses and trains as well as on platforms. So we are doing more public safety missions and strategic use of those cameras, particularly when it comes to things like drug use and dealing at different spots and locations in and around the metro area and participating in investigations with local law enforcement to hold people accountable. We do have real-time monitoring of our cameras now as well, as we built our security operations center, which is now 24 hours a day operating. We just stood that up completely in November. So we're still kind of streamlining kind of how we dispatch our resources and have the ability to really focus in on getting the right resource to the right location when an incident arises. We've also added blue light security phones at stations and platforms. You'll see these on the Banfield if you're driving in from the east side or if you're riding a blue line. You'll see that big blue light out there on our stations and platforms. These are stanchions that you can go to, press a button on, and connect directly with our 24-hour security dispatch center. So we've gotten a lot of really good feedback from these. We are now putting these on all of our stations and platforms on the MAX. So you're going to see these down in Clackamas as well, and all across our system on property that we own. So Pioneer Courthouse Square will not be one because we don't own that property. We can't put a stanchion up, but every station and platform that we own, TriMet will have these up. And this has been very well received by the community. If you've been to a college campus, you've seen these same kinds of technologies. And now that's just one way to get a hold of our security operations center. I'm going to talk about some others towards the end. So continuous improvements. We are doing access control on our elevators, monitoring our elevators. We have you have to prove that you're a rider to get on the elevator. So this has been very helpful for us to monitor and control some of the behavior that are in our elevator systems and some of our protected areas. So use your hop card to gain access. This is pretty innovative. We have safety monitors on the buses, safety panels for our operators. So lots of different advancements over the last few years. Next slide, please. I'm going to move it along here towards the end, but we are doing enhanced cleaning. Cleaning and the perception of safety go hand in hand. So you're going to see a lot cleaner system. There's a lot more contract, a lot more dollars being spent to keep our right of way and our stations and platforms clear. We'll go to the next slide. So just a few ongoing safety and security goals, continuing to expand our overall security presence, de-escalation. We've done a lot of emphasis on that, not only with our operators, but others, facilities, et cetera, across the system, facilities cleaners, I should say. Anyone working out in the public is getting de-escalation training. We're also enhancing education for TriMet's rules for riding out on the system and increasing code enforcement, which I mentioned earlier. We've more than quadrupled our amount of code and fare enforcement over the last 5 months. So you're going to see a lot more fare checks out there. And then just investments in SEPTED, crime prevention through environmental design, lots more lighting, surveillance, cutting down on shrubs, anything that's sightline, related. But you're going to see a lot more open stations and platforms, particularly some of our older ones like Gresham's Transit Center. We've really spent a lot of money improving that dynamic. Next slide, please. And so this is our last slide, but I just want to put out there that you can get in touch with our Security Operations Center 24 hours a day by texting or calling 238-RIDE. You can also obviously go to the trimet.org website. There's actually a security button up there. So if you were riding and you just went to trimet.org, you could click on a button and communicate directly with a dispatcher. And obviously, we mentioned earlier, our blue light phones connect direct with Security Operations Center. So they're fielding calls all day long. And the goal is to try to respond with the right resource when somebody interacts with something unsafe, so that security shows up and deals with that issue. So getting a lot of good feedback from that Security Operations Center and just having some tools in the rider's hands to be able to deal with some of the things that they see that are unsafe out there versus wait for a 911 phone call response. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up. I think I might have gone a little over, but wanted to get all this information to you. So thank you for your time today.
Great. So Andrew, I have a question I haven't asked before, and that is there, well, I guess I'll just ask it more Clackamas County specific, knowing that the green line and the orange line, that stub into Clackamas County, so to speak. Is there more activity, criminal activity issues at the end of the line of the orange and green line versus the stops in between, just coming over to the line?
Well, it's a good question. So we have hotspot data that we collect all the time in terms of where law enforcement activity is being called for, as well as just security and frontline personnel information. The end of the line is a challenge because that's where we have to clear trains. So we always have security at the end of the lines to clear trains. That creates a dynamic that's difficult. We have a houseless community, particularly in inclement weather, that like to try to get on those end of the lines, sometimes without fare. And so that creates a difficult dynamic at the end of the line. Really, if you're thinking about criminal activity and real safety security issues, that could happen at any point. It's not necessarily specific to the end of the line, but the end of the line creates challenges related to, really folks that want to, we call them, just non-destination riders, folks that want to ride the system all day long, because when they get to the end of the line, we have to deal with them and humanely remove them from the system, if that makes sense. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
I'll just say, I know there's not a lot of stops in Clackamas County. There's not much, not much miles of line, so to speak, in Clackamas County. But I will tell you that, since the green line opened, I have friends and family that have worked at the town center, and also lots of friends and neighbors who live around the orange line. And I'll just tell you the activity and the complaints are most especially at the orange line, because we have so many people. It's more of a housing area than the town center. Town center is more commercial. But I just tell you that it just seems like the end of the line, and all the videos I've seen, it seems like that's where the activity is coming and going. It's like the stop. I don't know why they just go to all the way to the end. I don't know, and load back up and off they go. So just a comment, observation. Mayor Milch.
Thank you for the statistics showing the increase in the number of employees. And looks like you've almost tripled the number of transit security officers. And that seems to be the strongest factor that, correlates with the decline in the number of serious crimes. But I'm wondering, you mentioned Governor Hochul in New York wanting 2 security personnel on each train. How does this 271 transit security officers, how does that compare with the number of operators and drivers in the system?
Yeah, great question. So, and Catherine Hochul in MTA, I do some traveling, so I end up talking to some of these folks. They are spending, it's not just transit security, these are transit cops, these are actual transit police. And so just an amazing investment, because you can imagine the amount of headways, the amount of trains that they have in operation all the time, to put 2 armed law enforcement on a train for a 3-hour period every single train. It's a huge investment. So they're really dealing with some issues at MTA. You can read about that in the newspapers. But what we have out on the system, about 2,400 operators. One of the things to remember when we talk about trying to put security on vehicles, we're mostly talking about, well, pretty much exclusively, when you think about that 270 number for Allied, we're talking about the light rail trains. Because buses, we have 780 buses and 24-hour rotation. It would be impossible to try to staff a security person on the buses. But I'll tell you, our risk profile for buses is much better. You don't see as many incidents on buses. And again, I think it comes down to presence. There's an operator there who can report directly with the SOC or call 911, et cetera. And so it does cut down on some of that. Usually what we do with the bus system is we have our SRT and our fare enforcement teams interact with those groups. But we don't try to put a sentinel, a security guard on a bus. We really focus on the trains. Now on the train side, we have about 140 trains, about a 20-hour, 19-hour operation window. And so we're able to staff that pretty significantly with our Allied security, and that's where they work. But we also have folks at platforms, and as they deal with issues on the train, they get off of the train. And so you may not always see security on the train because they're getting on and off the train and dealing with issues that are off platform, et cetera. But we're working towards having as many security actually riding the trains as possible. That gets a lot of perception of safety results for us. So I can't remember that off the top of my head exactly the amount of operators of trains. It might be in the 300 or 400 range, I think, overall. So just for kind of your knowledge in terms of numbers.
Now that gives me a good picture. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we're a little bit over, but Councilor Pratt, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Andrew, well, thanks to TriMet for dealing with this issue, but I'm wondering what steps you're doing for public outreach and if you're yet seeing any increased ridership.
Yeah, we've steadily been gaining back our riders. It's a slow process. There's lots of societal issues with that. You see it, work from home is huge, just folks not coming back in with the same patterns of work that they used to. And that also has a detractor on safety and security perception as well, because full trains, full buses are better for security just in general. There's more eyes on the system and there's more kind of regular riders riding the system. But we are steadily building back our riders. It's kind of a slow going right now, but month to month we're increasing. And I think we'll continue to see that. In terms of outreach, that's really why we have our safety response team. We have other groups that work with outreach as well, but our outreach through the safety response team, there's a manager and 2 assistant managers. They're constantly meeting with behavioral health services in the area, social services in the area, and they're constantly making connections. In fact, I report to our board monthly on the amount of interactions. About every month, they're making 8,000 to 9,000 different kind of connection points with folks riding the system. Now, some of them are people that they've seen multiple times, right, that are using the system. This is their primary mode of travel. They may or may not have fare, but they're dealing with the issues I mentioned, which is really houselessness, drug addiction, and mental health. We get a lot of celebration of the safety response team because they're in 3 counties and they're connecting with people that go across counties with different services available to them. Our safety response team actually meets with people, walks them to services several blocks off sometimes, where folks can get their needs addressed. And so this is a necessary tool, not only for transit, but honestly for our community. They're really connected with the Portland Street Response and others. And they kind of work hand in hand, talk about folks that they're seeing with regularity. In a perfect world, I think I grew up in Portland, live here currently, raised my 3 kids in Gresham. In a perfect world, we would start to see some of these folks actually, remove themselves from the streets, remove themselves from drug addiction. I think we all want that. But, at this point, it's really about just making those repeated connections with outreach services. And that's what the safety response team does for us. We deal with a lot of very vulnerable people that we interact with out on our system. And so Good outreach, but we need to do a lot as a community to be able to actually help these folks. And of course, our mission in transit is a little bit more specific than that, but we're doing our part.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew, John, for being here today and the presentation. Was appreciated. Thank you. Next up is our JPAC discussion, and Mayor Buck, I see you at the top of the agenda for that section. So,
yes, we're doing a new. Thank you, Commissioner Savas. We're doing a new format here at the C4 Metro. We're going to be kind of, I'll introduce the JPAC topic, and today the impact topic as well. So that JPAC tomorrow, we have kind of two big items on the agenda. One is this MTIP amendment to advance the I-5 Rose Quarter project. We have been getting a lot of emails from people who are opposed to this. It's an organized campaign, but anyway. In Lake Oswego, we also have this lake issue going on. So anyway, my inbox has been horrible. Just the two things together. What a nightmare. But anyway, there's the thing is with this I-5 Rose. So this is advancing kind of the first phase of the I-5 Rose Quarter project. It would begin this phase 1A. It's like phase 1A of phase 1, beginning in summer of 2025 and focusing on kind of the bookends of that corridor. And that would start introducing one of these first auxiliary lanes, which seems to be the source of contention, adding that additional lane. But just these auxiliary lanes that are being added to that area. And then this phase of the Rose Quarter also uses that Reconnecting Communities grant that the region received from the federal government, and that's going to accomplish about 30% of that freeway cap that is part of this plan. So not the full cap, but 30% of it. And so anyway, it's an exciting milestone for this project. It's been a long time in the works, and so this vote by JPAC is going to move that forward. And then we also have, and I believe what Grace is here to talk about today, is the RUFA allocation process, the step 1A and 2. And it's time for JPAC to kind of narrow down to a set of projects they can put forward to for public consideration. So with that, I guess we'll turn it over to Grace. Is Grace here?
I am promoting them now.
Jamie, is that my cue?
Yes,
All
I
right.
see both you and Jean are now in the meeting. The meeting is yours. Would you like me to run your PowerPoint?
Oh, I'm fine. I can go ahead and do it for the team if that's okay.
You're awesome, Grace. Thank you.
Yeah, well, good morning, C4. Thank you so much for having me and letting me provide an update on the 2028 through 2030 Regional Flexible Fund allocation. I'll be going over both where we are in the Step 1A.1 process that we are calling the new project bond, or the bond for short, as well as giving a brief update on the Step 2 draft evaluation results. So I'll just get started. So starting with the new project bond. So at this month's JPAC meeting, as Mayor Buck had noted, the aim is to request JPAC approve release of a draft bond allocation scenario for public comment. I just want to reemphasize that this month's action is just about releasing the draft bond allocation scenario for public comment. It is not a final action on the bond itself. That is scheduled for 2025. The public comment is an effort to gather community input and provide information to decision makers ahead of the action to approve and recommend the adoption of the 28 through 30 Regional Flexible Fund allocation. So getting to where we are today with the draft of bond allocation, over the last 9 months since Metro kicked off this effort to develop a new project bond proposal for regional consideration. A lot of development work has happened, and in particular, over the course of the past couple of months, Metro staff have shared some different bond scenario options to garner input, which has led to the draft bond allocation scenario being shared today. There were a few key objectives that really shaped the draft bond allocation scenario that you're seeing today. And I'll just go through them quickly here on this slide. The first is that we did allocate up to the $84 million in estimated bond proceeds available. The second is that we did look to invest into all 5 candidate projects that remained in contention for bond proceeds, even if this meant that no one project bond was receiving its full funding request. The third was to invest bond proceeds into each candidate project at a level to position the project to be able to continue moving forward and essentially to advance. And ultimately, this is where our conversations with the project teams over the past month have been really insightful, being able to understand the timing, the project schedules, the milestones, funding strategy, and needs for the bond proceeds, which then informed the scenario that's being presented today. The fourth item was to take a look back at previous allocations to bond proceeds to similar projects, just for a point of comparison. And then lastly, with having 2 new transit categories open for consideration with this bond development process, considering that initial level of investment being made into those 2 categories. So with that, let's take a look at the draft bond allocation scenario. So this slide shows 3 of the 5 projects identified to receive bond proceeds with the proposed allocation levels, the activity in which the proceeds would be used, and a brief description of the project. This following slide shows the remaining 2 projects to receive bond proceeds as part of the draft bond allocation scenario with the same details as noted. So what's next with the Regional Flexible Fund bond? As I mentioned at the beginning, the March JPAC meeting, Metro staff will present the draft bond allocation scenario and ask JPAC to take action to release the bond scenario for public comment. Following the action to release, a public comment period is set to open on March 24th and run to April 28th. Whereas outlined in our program direction, there is an opportunity for the public to comment on the projects included in the bond scenario. Following, there will be opportunities to further discuss the bond scenario over May and June. And then lastly, Metro staff will seek action on the 28 through 30 Regional Flexible Fund bond in July, or request action. So now transitioning on to the Regional Flexible 28 through 30 Regional Flexible Fund Step 2 competitive allocation process and the draft technical results. Just kind of stepping back, since it's been a little while since we've talked about Step 2, just a reminder on the Flexible Fund allocation Step 2 aims. The aim of the Step 2 allocation process are really to, 1, allocate regional flexible funds in a manner to advance the implementation of the regional transportation plan goals, and 2, meet the objectives of the program direction, meet the objectives in the program direction for this cycle's allocation. For the 2028 through 2030 Regional Flexible Fund Step 2 allocation, up to $42 million will be awarded to local transportation projects throughout the region. And then finally, getting to the Step 2 allocation package for consideration entails several different inputs as shown, which all receive equal consideration. I just want to note that my presentation today is really focusing in on that second bullet under that Step 2 allocation inputs today. So that's the technical evaluation results. So since kicking off the Step 2 competitive allocation effort in August of last year, a lot's happened since. In fall, a Step 2 call for projects was held where jurisdictions within Clackamas County submitted a total of 6 applications out of the 24 received. Application assistance was also provided to 5 out of 6 of those applications. Among those 24 applications received, the total request in regional flexible funds was about $140 million, which is a little over 3 times the amount of funds that we have available this cycle. Since those applications were submitted in late November of last year, Metro and our consultant team, Kittleson and Associates, have been reviewing the applications and conducting 2 separate technical analyses. One is an outcomes evaluation, and the other is a project delivery assessment. So the purpose of the outcomes evaluation is to assess how well the application does in advancing our regional policy objectives as outlined in the Regional Transportation Plan goals, as well as consistency with our regional design guidelines. More details on the outcomes evaluation analysis can be found in the outcomes evaluation report and the appendices to that report included as part of the JPAC packet. Moving on, the purpose of the project delivery risk assessment is to flag for potential challenges the project may face going through the federal aid process. The project delivery risk assessment aims to improve the project delivery of regional flexible fund awarded projects and the various associated benefits as identified in this slide. I just want to also note that the analysis work for the project delivery risk assessment was undertaken by our consultant team, Kittleson and Associates, where their methodology and approach can be found in greater detail in the technical memorandum that's included as part of the JPAC packet. And then lastly, while both our technical evaluations serve as pieces of information to help inform the Step 2 allocation discussions, historically, the project delivery risk assessment is typically used to inform the conditions of approval at award and not part of building the allocation package. So now that I've walked through those 2 evaluations, I just wanted to present these short slides looking at the technical evaluation results. This slide is showing the summary of the the draft results from the outcomes evaluation ratings, as well as for all the applications and by each evaluation area. Just to note, construction applications are at the top and project development applications are separated towards the second half of the slide. Circled in the red boxes are the applications which came from the jurisdictions within Clackamas County. And then following this slide shows the summary of the project delivery risk assessment results. Circled in the blue boxes are the applications which came from the jurisdictions within Clackamas County. And again, I just want to note that these results are also included as part of the JPAC materials this month. So if you're not able to see this very well, I do encourage just popping over into the materials to find these. So what's next with the Regional Flexible Fund Step 2 process? So after today, or essentially today and afterwards, throughout the month of March, Metro staff will be sharing the technical evaluation results with our regional partners with the aim to get these results finalized this month in efforts to provide final reports to our coordinating committees, including the Metro C4 Subcommittee and the TAC. Following, a public comment is scheduled, set to open again in late March and run through the end of April. This provides the opportunity to accept public comment on the Step 2 project applications as described as they were submitted. In May, there are a few different activities. First, Metro staff will look to compile a public comment summary quickly in efforts to provide regional partners, including our coordinating committees. In the same month, Metro staff will also ask regional partners to weigh in on different concepts for building the Step 2 allocation package option. And then third, during May, Metro will ask our regional partners through their coordinating committees to identify and communicate their coordinating committee priority if they choose to do so. Following in June, Metro staff will present a set of Step 2 allocation package options where the packages are meant to garner discussion and give direction in shaping a Step 2 allocation to bring forward in July, where again, the aim in July is to request action on the total 2020 through 2030 Regional Flexible Fund allocation package that would include all of Step 2 as well as the bond. And with that, that is my presentation today. I'm hoping you're actually seeing that final slide, and I'm happy to take questions, comments, etc.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Grace, for the presentation and for all your work on this RUFA project for everyone in the region. As I think that everyone in this room is aware of, unfortunately, as proposed by Metro currently, TriMet will not be able to support this bond scenario at JPAC coming up on Friday. The projects, TriMet's projects, both 82nd Avenue and TV Highway have already been value engineered to within an inch of their lives, and this $30 million funding request that we made of REFA for each of those projects is essential to the viability of those projects for them to be constructed. So based on the funding that is available in this proposal, we are not able to support it moving forward. That is what I've been telling all of our other regional coordinating committees this week. But the change that has happened, I think, within the last 12 hours, I was working on this last night at 9 p.m., is that there seems that there have been some deals that have been made to try and make this work for everyone with an alternate scenario that will be brought forward on Thursday. TriMet has been working with City of Portland, Metro, ODOT, and our regional partners to try and find a scenario that works for everyone. I don't know who knows about this yet, to be honest with you, just because I heard about this last night. But there is a proposal that would slightly increase the amount of step one funds to increase the funding that's going to both TV Highway and 82nd Avenue, while also finding some external sources of funding for those programs with ODOT and City of Portland to ensure that they're getting the $30 million total that they need to move forward as part of this package. And specifically for this group, that would mean Sunrise Corridor as part of step one would return back to about the $10 million that equals what the other regional partners are getting for their projects, which I know is not what this group wants to hear, but also as part of that project, it sounds like there's a potential that there are another at least $2 million for the project that could come through Metro from another source or from step two. I'm not sure exactly about the specifics of that program. So that is all to say, this is a fluid topic. We are continuing to work on something. We want to find a path forward that works for everyone in the region, that also allows us to construct these two high capacity transit projects that are so important to our entire region. I would just reiterate that one of those, 82nd Avenue, does serve Clackamas County. I know it's not a priority project for this county, nor does it serve a major portion of this county, but it is an important project that does serve Clackamas County as well. So this is a fluid scenario. We're trying to figure out the best path forward. But I want to be clear that we are trying to make it work for everyone, and that we also want your help and support to do this. So Commissioner Savas, Mayor Buck, will continue to have these conversations to make sure that you all are aware of the most current information, and I'll have you talking with our leadership at TriMet, as well as some other leaders in the region to coordinate on this. But I do want to be clear that we want to find something that works for you, and we want your support.
Well, John, I appreciate you being, appreciate your candor. I'll be as diplomatic as I can here. Personally, I can't speak for the commission. I can't speak for everyone in this room, but I'll just speak for myself. I'm at a tipping point. And I think I feel as though that we set on this journey a year ago under the understanding that we were going to be flexible, that we're going to do things the same way, that we were going to have some project development and commitment to that. Metro staff asked us to look at a $10 million scenario, and our staff returned with the response was we could complete it, and $10 million wouldn't work. I appreciate again your candor that you all been talking with a few people. You haven't been really talking to us about working together. All I got was a conversation about the the take of $2.5 million out of our project, which is actually a $5 million take because our project's a $15 million ask. It's not a 12.5 ask, it's not a 10. 10 doesn't work. So it just seems that whatever conversations are happening, TriMet has not been working with us. I'll just tell you that. I know that's not necessarily all your job. I know there's others that are obviously involved, but I just, my takeaway, I did get some notes from what took place at the Washington County Coordinating Committee. I know what some of those comments and concerns are, but I don't feel that we're being regional or we're being included in that. And it seems like it's more TriMet working against us. I'm just being candid. So with that, I see Mayor Buck, you got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. At the last JPAC meeting, I'll say like there was no decisions made or whatnot, but the conversation centered around a scenario that would have funded the 2 TriMet projects, 82nd and TV Highway, and then the full funding that Clackamas County is asking for, which is $15 million for Sunrise. And then I don't know how we got from there to what is in the JPAC packet for tomorrow. But it seemed like those were the projects that were ready to go. And Grace, I don't know if you're able to give us maybe a little more context, like some things that have not been answered yet for me, or like what is, Burnside Bridge and Montgomery Park are both very large projects. And what is where they don't have funding, and this rough allocation is just a fraction, right, of their overall cost. And so haven't been able to fully understand like the timing of this, right? Is like now the right time to be allocating money to these 2 projects, and what is the context? And I know that TPAC had asked for that as well. Like what's the full funding context of those 2 projects?
Sure, and I might have Jean pop in, but maybe just stepping back just briefly, Mayor Buck, in response, I believe that what we've heard over the course of the last couple of months through both TPAC and JPAC has actually not been consensus. There's maybe been some coalescing around a couple of different scenario options, but not necessarily consensus around a single option. And in efforts to try to put something forward for consideration for the public comment period, this is where staff had come to the proposal that was being put forward today with some possible alternative considerations that John noted this just a minute ago. In terms of the discussion around the question around the funding strategy, yes, we have heard this request come through. We have been trying to work through with partners to better understand that, and that's actually part of what our project conversations have been centered around, is really understanding the timing and details around those. Based off of that information and what has been shared through those project conversations, it's our clear understanding about what the role the bond proceeds would play in relationship to those different projects. And I'm sorry, I'm being more general here than just specific. I guess if the desire is to understand a little bit more about Burnside and Montgomery Park, that is information we could bring forward, but I can just basically note that Montgomery Park streetcar is in a similar, the bond proceeds play a similar function and role as it would for the other, the 82nd Avenue and TV Highway transit projects, in terms of they're also participating in the Federal Transit Administration's capital investment grant program. In terms of Burnside Bridge's concept, it would the role of bond proceeds allows them to leverage a number of external sources beyond just the federal programs that they're looking at, and include some of their vehicle registration as well as requests that they've put in through the state legislature that they've been successful with, as well as what they're putting forward currently. So that's just a very brief description as to what we understand about it, but we felt that the information that we received relative to the timing needs and activity that would be used for was worthy, and as well as the consideration of how the projects performed in our technical evaluations, kept them as worthy considerations as part of this bond scenario, including as well as with Sunrise. So in this same respect.
Thank you, Grace. Yeah, I mean, if it's possible, it would be helpful just to better understand that overall kind of cost of these projects. I mean, all these projects are complicated, right? I mean, it's not just a matter of some funding and I mean, there's property acquisition, other funding sources, funding at the federal level is all tied up right now. So it would just be helpful to kind of understand the path forward, from RUFA to a project actually breaking ground. And I think the other piece of it too, I mean, just for me, Montgomery streetcar, I mean, it's hard to see that as a regional project. It's like how many blocks is the extension? I mean,
I believe in the materials, it's noted it's about a 1.3 mile extension on the north-south line of the existing streetcar. So
it just doesn't seem like it's, to me, a project that is has the same like multi-jurisdictional kind of enhancement that some of the other projects like the 82nd TV Highway and Sunrise have. I mean, that's just my comment.
Yeah, so just to build on that, maybe we can get to the bottom of that. What I heard from Washington County folks, similar concerns as Mayor Buck's expressing, but I heard that it was a 0.6 mile extension of the streetcar. I don't know if that's true or not, but I would like to get more of the facts. But I think what we heard in this 1 year journey since we just went upon this path where we're going to do things different and we're going to consider project development, or it will be part of this. I heard, Chair Gonzalez say many times that the big three, Sunrise, 82nd Avenue and TV Highway. And now it's like, and they're all, I don't think anyone argues, we all support the regional aspects of that, but I'm still struggling with the regional aspects of the other two projects as far as how regional are they and how ready are they as far as the funding, right? If the funding is not there, do we want to risk political capital and any kind of good faith at this table, or not this table per se, but the JPAC table or the regional table, that we're going to abandon all of that? I kind of feel as though that it's almost like there hasn't really been the follow through on what we set about, the principles we set about a year ago, and we're just going back to the old way of doing what one particular agency wishes to do at the expense of everyone else, to some degree. Not everyone else, but a number of us. That said, Mr. Anderson, Councilor Anderson.
Yeah, especially in light of the concerns that TriMet brought forward at the start, I'm just curious, are there projected ridership numbers for Montgomery Park and what that would look like as compared to 82nd or TV Highway? Like, I just wonder, I know the streetcar is a nice amenity to have, but the streetcar compared to a rapid bus service or a light rail line, to me, seems like a less used and less efficient form of transportation. So I'm just curious about the numbers and the impact that this project would have as compared to some of the other high needs project that TriMet was advocating for.
Grace, do you want me to jump in?
Can I quickly respond to that? I'm sorry, Metro.
Sure.
I just want to be very clear with folks that since we are talking about the Montgomery Park streetcar project, that is not a TriMet project. I'm obviously not throwing that project under the bus, but that is a City of Portland project. The streetcar is run by the City of Portland and is not TriMet. So I'm not here advocating for that with you all today.
Right. So, Jean, you want to jump in and answer?
Yeah, I just wanted, if I may. So just in terms of streetcar, and Will, your question about ridership, I don't have that at my fingertips today, but that's something we can definitely provide. I know that earlier on in the process in TPAC and JPAC materials, we provided project one-pager summaries for all of the nominated projects. It may be in there. If not, we can ask the folks from PBOT and Portland Streetcar to provide that if we don't have it. I think I would say that the regional aspect of the streetcar is really that this is an extension that's adding on to the existing system that the region's already invested in. And so this 1.6 mile extension connects that neighborhood to the rest of the streetcar system and really, frankly, the rest of the transit system, where it crosses other places where we have TriMet service, whether that's MAX or bus. So happy to get more information in front of you. And also, I think maybe it was Mayor Buck who also asked more about the funding and the timing. And you're raising the questions around the uncertainty just in the federal landscape are something that we're aware of. I think at the same time, when we were at JPACT and Metro Council several months back, the message was keep proceeding. We don't know what's going to happen with the uncertainty, and let's move forward and be ready to do big things as a region and make decisions around the RUFA funding so that we're ready for when the timing comes and the timing is right for these projects. So appreciate your questions and feedback. That's really helpful. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I just want to add that in my conversations yesterday, including some folks in Washington County, I know that's more of an economic development project, right? I mean, the housing that's going to be built there isn't even there. It doesn't really exist. So it's got a long way to go. And, I kind of always describe Montgomery Park as, because I had some friends who had businesses, or it's actually one that still does, but several of that have left that area because it's a cul-de-sac. There's not a lot of flow through. It's not a corridor. It's really a large cul-de-sac that's yet to be developed. That's got a long, long, long way to go. So I don't, that's what I've heard, and that's partially what I know. So, Counselor Lewis, what can you share with us today?
Sure, thank you. First, I was going to share that the streetcar project has a lot of momentum because of the rezoning that's just happened. City has taken some action. So I actually think there's movement there where there isn't in, say, the Burnside project. And I am very intrigued by the economic development portions of that project, which for me is why it's still on the map. But when it comes to the conversation today, I was informed after work hours last night, like I think everybody else, that there's this proposed deal. And that deal includes finding other sources of funds to put into essentially a bond plus kind of package. I am thankful that there are some partners who have found those funds. I'm still trying to dig in and have made some phone calls to learn what exactly those sources are to find out how secure they are. But my hope would be that we can actually learn what the totals in this proposed deal are. I don't know, Jean or Grace, if you have any sort of charts or materials. Obviously, this apparently came together yesterday. But I'm sort of surprised that we're not seeing those numbers side by side, since that's where the conversation is going to be tomorrow.
Yeah, Councilor Lewis, yes, this all came together kind of quickly yesterday for us too. So yeah, sorry we don't have any updates to share. I think for us it's still a little too fresh to have brought this forward. We're just sharing the same materials that we shared with all the other coordinating committees. So more will be discussed tomorrow morning.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hearing that the
Yeah.
deal includes 12.5 for Sunrise. I think that's a base of the 10 in the bond and then an assured 2.5 from, I believe it's a carve into step 2, or is it other Metro sources? And I'm just curious what the other sources have been identified as.
Yeah, I've heard the same as you around the step 2. There's still some figuring out to do at our end. And we're gonna bring as much information as we can tomorrow in terms of how we make this come together on that piece for Sunrise. So Wish I had more for you to be able to say today, but I just don't.
I think I'd always been thinking that a carve out of step 2 could be possible, particularly when we hit the first snag about if doing the NEPA was going to be bond eligible. I was like, well, let's just grab different color money from down below in step 2. So I'm not upset by that. I actually think step 2 is potentially more reliable than hoping that the city of Portland magic money will actually magic itself, because I don't know how the city of Portland is promising money when they have $100 million deficit. And you have the mayor at the JPAC table, but the council president had no idea this deal was in motion when I called her last night. So I'm glad we're not depending on City of Portland's money, and that can go to the streetcar and they'll live or die on their own terms. So I'm feeling anxious that we're a day out from a meeting and there's a deal, but nothing's on paper yet. But I guess I at least want to lift up that the 12.5 number seems at least a little stress tested. And we'll continue to push forward for that. But the other thing I want to hold up is if we are doing a carve up of some of the step 2 money, absolutely in no way should Clackamas be penalized for that when it gets to step 2 and we look at how things are spread out. We're a quarter by just sheer number of applications, and I would hope we are more than that in number of dollars. Well, a quarter to 30% in dollars when it gets time to do the regional allocation, and we should not be counted double for the Sunrise investment up top.
Thanks for that feedback.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor. And I know a lot of people are caught, we're all caught by surprise a little bit this. This was such a convoluted concept that was thrown by me late yesterday, that I couldn't even repeat it to anyone. And I don't think I could actually explain it to anyone and have them comprehend it. Because again, it seems so convoluted, but the complication that I expressed, I don't feel like it was part of a deal. It's like it was just thrown at us like, here it is. And so I just want full disclosure. I did not, participate in whatever that was. I was notified of what it was. And I expressed my reservations, and I have not expressed any agreement that's, viable or doable. My concern that I did express, and I appreciate what Grace said earlier in her presentation with regard to the step 2, it's oversubscribed. And Clackamas County has a lot of projects in there, Oregon City, others. So there's a lot of projects in step 2. So we're going to be fighting amongst ourselves for something that's already oversubscribed. And I'm just concerned that on a hope and a whim, there's got to be some greater security or confidence or a commitment that's actionable. I mean, that can be reliable, that assures that, number one, our project's whole. Well, it's not whole at 15 million, but we can get by with 12.5, and that's it. But also the security that Clackamas County projects in step 2 aren't going to be compromised as a result of that. We're bargaining against ourselves, and I think that's really unfair. And I think this late in the game, I really feel it's unfair. It's not transparent. And again, I feel that there's no regional camaraderie here whatsoever. And it's not a good day for me, but Mayor Milch, you're up.
Well, politically, it's certainly easier to give a little bit to everyone than to have to say no to a few. And looking back at the 8 scenarios that were presented to us last month, there was one, the sort of regionally balanced one that gave most of the funding needed to 3 of the projects, the big 3, I guess there's others have called them, and 0 to the other 2. But I think Councilor Lewis's comments regarding the financial viability of the additional funds needed by the jurisdiction supporting them, that meant a lot to me. I think if Clackamas County is a little stronger position to use the funds that they get to make sure this project moves forward, I think they ought to be given the priority. I would have favored one of those. I think it was option scenario 4, scenario 5, whichever one that got that funded the big 3.
Yeah, I think that was scenario 3 and 5 last month. Yeah, if I recall correctly. Okay, John.
Commissioner, I just wanted to respond really briefly to the comments that you made at the beginning. The first being that I do just want to be clear that TriMet has reiterated through this entire process from the beginning that full funding of $30 million for both TV Highway and for 82nd Avenue are essential for those projects to move forward. And if we are not able to secure that funding for those projects, then they will not be able to be constructed. And that is the unfortunate truth. The second is that I really appreciate your comments about communication and just want to reiterate my personal commitment to always being in communication with you and this group about the work that we are doing. As I said, and as others have said, this was just learned about last night. I've not had time personally to connect with other folks about this or learn more about it myself. But I want to make sure that that line of communication is always open between us and this group.
Appreciate that, John. All I can say is that between everything that's going on here regionally, everything that's going on at the state level, and everything's going on at the federal level, this is very, very bad timing.
Understood.
Yeah, Councilor Lewis.
Sure, thank you. I think that the alternative to moving forward with numbers tomorrow, like this quote unquote deal, that the other path forward would be to get public comment on these projects with no numbers attached, which I feel is a waste of everybody's time and resource to go out and ask people how they feel about a project, not knowing if the project's going to get to, you know, a midpoint or a final point. That makes no sense, and it's not going to put us in any different spot. So I am happy that we're at least going to be talking in real numbers tomorrow and getting the public comment with real numbers. I do think I'm happy that Sunrise is at the 12.5. I guess I will continue to reiterate, concern that, you know, ODOT could find a little bit of money, PBOT could find a little bit of money. Metro found apparently some money. I don't fully understand, how we're going to summarize, those little bits of money when talking to the public, because this is suddenly like a funding stack, and the whole point is to have some local money that is leveraged against other dollars, and a complicated funding stack is harder to show for leverage. 82nd Avenue already has like 19 sources already in it, and you know, that's just from my looking at the slides at 82nd Avenue Steering Committee. So I understand where TriMet says there's no flexibility, but there's already so many different colors of money in some of these projects. I think simple is better. And I think we're getting super complicated. This was not a deal I put together. I learned about it. I think actually I got a call after you did, Commissioner. I want to stress test it. But I do actually want to get public comment on numbers. I do not want us to move forward at JPAC tomorrow with the resolution being that we aren't able to move forward with testing any numbers, because then we're just going to be in the same spot in 2 months with no additional information. And it's not going to be any better.
Appreciate that, Counselor. You know, again, I just want to let folks around this table know, members of Clackamas County, members of C4, that if we are put in a position where we're fighting or we're taking another $2.5 million out of step 2 for a guarantee for Sunrise, let's just say, or any other project for that matter, right? Who's to say that, you know, an hour from now, there's not another deal that taps step 2 for more money, right? That's going to compromise some of the applications that are in step 2 right now that are in Clackamas County. So every time there's this pattern where it's this disproportionate amount of funding that goes to the rest of the region and leaves the areas, whether it's East Multnomah County or whether it's Clackamas County or it's the outskirts of Washington County, you know, the poor get poorer and the rich get richer. This is a pattern of 25 years, and that's why I'm at that point that I don't know how much more diplomatic I can be at this point, frankly. Any other discussion on this before we move to MPAC stuff? Jamie, oh yeah, Jamie, thank you. Could you just put up a letter real quick for that we all talked about at C4 that we're submitting today for public comment for the RUFA discussion tomorrow?
Yes, and by way of background, at the last C4 meeting, there was interest in developing a letter to advocate for Sunrise for submission to JPACT ahead of their March 20th meeting, which will be the meeting at which JPACT will be asked to make an action to send the package out to public comment. County technical staff have developed letter language, which was circulated yesterday to C4 members for their awareness, as well as with an invitation for members to self-identify if they would like to sign on to the letter. And if we reach greater than a majority of C4 members, then we will list participating members under the co-chair's signature block. I have heard back from a few members. However, if you're in this meeting and have not responded to my email, this would be a great time to email me back. Additionally, that email includes some different ways to engage at the JPACT meeting if you are interested and willing to provide testimony in support of the Sunrise Project. Are there any questions?
See none. Yeah, thank you, Jamie, for that. And like I said, if we can get enough critical mass on signatures, we'll add the signatures. If we don't, we'll just be signed by Mayor Hodson and I, or already is signed by Mayor Hodson and I. We'll just add. So we use our discretion there. Thank you all for your support on the letter. And with that, Jamie, what's next?
Also, real quick before we move on, I do want to take a moment and recognize Grace and her team. Metro did something really novel this cycle by offering local technical support to help agencies develop better applications in the Step 2 process. And I know a number of agencies here in Clackamas County received that support. So thank you, Grace, for trying out this new process. I recognize that there was a sizable investment to make that opportunity available, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, and actually really members of C4 and your JPAC representatives for being the ones to really advocate for that, and we were able to find an opportunity to make it happen. Let's hope that we continue to be able to find those opportunities to make it happen for future cycles.
Thank you.
Can I move us on to MPAC?
Yeah, go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you, Grace. I think we should all be sensitive too. I mean, this is a real political conversation, and I do feel, you know, for the staff, you're kind of been stuck, you know, in the middle of this, you know, god awful kind of, you know, football scrum here that we have going on, and we appreciate all the guidance and work they put in, and they're not the ones, you know, pulling the strings here. So, yeah. So for MPAC, MPAC tonight, we have two things on the agenda there. One is an SHS, Supported Housing Services Update annual report. That's a great document. If it's over 100 pages, but it's you know, if anyone would like to kind of look through. And also we're having an update on the regional housing coordination, which is an effort by Metro. I'll just read the vision of this update is to create a roadmap for actions Metro will advance to promote housing production, coordination, and access by lifting up best practices, coordinating and aligning local strategies, and addressing critical gaps that can be filled at the regional level. That's what we have on the MPAC agenda for tonight. And then I think, do we have, is Jamie Stasny?
Laura Turway will be providing the MTAC update. However, I have also brought over a team TPAC if they would like to provide an update after Laura.
Before we jump on, Mayor, could you take over as co-chair? I've got another meeting I got to jump off to. So thank you all for your participation. And Mayor Buck, the meeting's yours.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner. Okay, Laura, take it away.
All right, good morning. For MTAC, a highlight of our February 19th meeting, we had a compliance report for Metro for our functional plans. And so it's a yearly report that evaluates how well the jurisdictions within the metro region are complying with the Urban Growth Management Functional Plan and Regional Transportation Functional Plan. Spoiler alert, we're all doing good. There is some Title 11 planning areas inside UGB expansion areas that we've yet to do, but we're all moving forward and even got moved the ball along for some of the work for some of the jurisdictions this past year in 2024. The other project was the 82nd Avenue Transit Project. In lieu of our short timeline, I'm not going to go into any details, but happy to provide information if you need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Jeff, Will, TPAC.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. Will, if you'd like, feel free to take over. Just wanted to give you a very quick TPAC update.
Yeah. Good morning, councilors, commissioners, and mayors. We had our TPAC meeting back on March 7th. It was one of our first back in person ones, so we were all excited to get in the same room, share some snacks, and do some discussions. Meeting went pretty well. We had our fatal crash update showing that 5 of the fatalities occurred in Clackamas County. Between the last meetings, 4 of which were on ODOT facilities. We went over the safety minute of showing that the city of Sherwood put up a brand new pedestrian bridge over Highway 99. PBOT is reconstructing Southwest 4th Avenue from Lincoln to Burnside in downtown Portland. ODOT is beginning construction of systemic safety project along Highway 99 from Ross Island Bridge to King City. We got our transit minute from TriMet, showing a couple improvements there, including Multnomah County's access shuttle doubling its frequency, C-Tran in the city of Vancouver launching a pilot project testing next generation transit signal priority, and then TriMet bus improvements that took effect on March 2nd, including enhancing service for Line 6, Lines 47, and other service expansions. Going through it, Metro announced that they're going out for Safe Streets for All, or they're announcing that the funding opportunity for Safe Streets for All grants, letting us go in for a survey on if we wanted to go for one of the 2 project types. Going into the MTIP amendments, we did they looked into ODOT public transportation award for TriMet, as well as adding Oregon Transportation Commission approved dollars to the I-5 Rose Corridor project in 3 different phases. And then, as you've discussed today, we had some good discussion around the step 1A.1 and the new bond project for Metro's regional flexible funds. Pretty much today of kind of trying to talk about, is this a good time? What projects need to be the most funded? What risks? We did not come to a consensus on a bond measure or a funding package to present up to JPACT, but we cautioned them and told them to look through the record and see what concerns everybody had on that. Then we went into the same kind of discussion on the regional step 2 or regional flexible fund step 2 allocations, and just kind of brief overview of how those projects weighed against each other. And then we went into the draft 25-26 Unified Planning Work Program. Jeff, did I miss anything?
I think you got it. There's more in the packet there. If anyone has questions, our contact information is there. I would just mention very briefly the UPWP, that Unified Planning Work Program, is an important piece that we'll be advancing that helps to show a lot of transparency behind all the projects in the region and kind of how Metro works in many ways in the front half of that document. For anyone who's interested, there's a lot of good information there. So thank you for your time on the brief update.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Will. Does anyone have any, we're kind of right at time. Does anyone have any questions or final comments? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you all very much. See you again soon. Bye.